Hello and welcome to The Wire Explains, our daily live show that's a news wrap on important events. I'm Jahnavi sent from The Wire, and this is our founding editor Siddharth Varadarajan. So we'll be discussing three major events today. The first is the China standoff, which doesn't seem to be cooling down at the moment. The second is another beef incident that's taken place in Nagpur, where a man was attacked for carrying meat. And the third is a whole debate that's happening on the internet on freedom of speech and expression, and a meme that the comedy group AIB put out. So let's start with the China border standoff. So External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj has called an all-party meet for tomorrow. So that suggests that things aren't really getting any better at the border. What do you think is going to happen?
I think that it's at one level normal that in a major foreign policy crisis, because there's no denying that this is a crisis, the government would want to brief all opposition parties, particularly when it involves China or Pakistan, where you have border issues involved. And the timing of the meeting would not have raised eyebrows except for the fact that for the last 4 or 5 days, the MEA has tried to put out spin, if you like, or a message to reporters here and to domestic public opinion in general that the standoff at Doklam at the tri-junction of the border with Bhutan, India and China is kind of calming down and things will get resolved. There was the speech that the Foreign Secretary made in Singapore where he said that diplomacy will work, and the Chinese spokesperson was asked about this yesterday at the regular briefing of the Chinese Foreign Ministry, and he says, yes, it's true that diplomacy normally resolves these things, but he said this is different. And yesterday was also a day when the Chinese added a new dimension to their rhetoric. When asked a question about ceasefire violations on the line of control between India and Pakistan, the Chinese spokesperson said that, well, maybe a third country should be, can offer its good services. Something Chinese have, this has not been the Chinese line for I would say, not since Kargil, and even before Kargil has one heard this kind of a line from Beijing. So I think that all indications from the Chinese side are that there is not going to be any backing down. So in the light of that, an all-party meeting, perhaps it's in the fitness of things that the government wants to take the opposition to confidence. There are misgivings about what's happened, have all possible avenues for de-escalation been pursued. So I think that this meeting is important, and I would imagine that the opposition parties who otherwise play politics, as do all opposition parties, are probably likely to take this meeting very seriously and actually try to come to grips to the extent that the opposition can with what might be a way forward here.
Right. And what you're saying about how China is portraying this a little differently from how India is. So recently the Chinese People's Daily, which is the newspaper of the Communist Party, they put out an image online of a 1962 editorial.
I mean, that was quite, the title of the editorial, it's of course, this is the actual editorial that was carried on September 22nd, 1962, before the India-China, the first or the only India-China war that we fought. And the phrase used, it's essentially a famous Confucian analect, that if this is to be tolerated, then what can't be, what else will be. And it was, kind of an ultimatum to the Indian army and to the Indian government at that time.
And an ultimatum that they followed through on.
Exactly. So is this part of psychological warfare? Is it a psyop on the Chinese part to kind of spook the Indians? I think that India would be well advised to take all of this signaling seriously. I would add, however, that conflict, even a skirmish, at this juncture suits neither India or China. Both countries are preoccupied with their economic difficulties, and it's hard to see how any kind of a border incident. And let's remember that since the Sum-Dorongchu incident of '86, there's been no conflagration or tension of an armed kind on the boundary. There have been plenty of incursions and counter-incursions and standoffs and jostling and pushing and shoving and incidents 2013, 2014. But there hasn't been anything which has escalated. So so far also the Indian soldiers who are in what we say is Bhutanese territory, and which the Chinese insist is Chinese territory, India is still able to supply those troops.
Yeah.
So the Chinese are not interfering with the supply lines. Perhaps one form of escalation which would be reminiscent of what happened in 62 is that they may cordon the Indian soldiers who are there and then not allow Indians to resupply them, and that would obviously trigger some kind of an incident, maybe not a shooting one, but I think that there is scope for escalation, but I don't see conflict. But I think that this all-party meeting is significant, and probably the government of India recognizes that the crisis, the situation is rather more serious than what the public has been led to believe, and certainly the messaging from the MEA over the last 3-4 days has, I think a day before yesterday there was no briefing, or during the Chinese briefing, the Indian border issue didn't come up, even though it had come up every single day for the past week. And this was seen by some Indian officials as a sign that the Chinese are de-escalating.
Right. Completely
wrong. So I think let's see, the big story tonight and tomorrow is going to be this the all-party meeting and what the government says and how the India-China boundary situation develops. But I think there's plenty of juice left in the story for us to track.
Right. And so please stay tuned to The Wire, and we'll be bringing you more of that. But now let's move on to the second story of the day, which is that there's been another beef-related incident, an attack in Nagpur, where 4 men assaulted a Muslim man who was carrying some sort of meat on his motorcycle. They assumed it was beef and beat him up before the police came and intervened. But one of the things that has come to light in a lot of the reports on this is that one of the police's first reactions is to send this meat, whatever it is, to a lab for testing.
Yeah.
And another thing that the Maharashtra police has decided to do is give police beef kits to carry with them. So, I mean, that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. This reaction of let's get the meat tested. What does that entail?
I think your focus is right in the sense that there've been violent incidents, there've been lynchings, there've been killings, but it's always the response of law and order that has been the most astonishing, right? In Pehlu Khan's case in Alwar, the instinct of the police was to say, "Arey, why were they transporting cattle? Permit dikhao, permit nahi hai." So book them for illegally transporting cattle without some NOC. In the case of Akhlaq in Dadri, the meat was immediately seized and sent for forensic examination, and then some kind of manipulation has happened because initially they said it's not beef, then they said it is beef. Why that should be of any relevance at all is something that is mystifying. And obviously, despite what the Prime Minister has has said on 2 occasions, right? And the government has tried to put out in one way or the other that no, we should crack down on Gorakshaks and people's rights should be respected, and you cannot. I think there was a statement by Ram Madhav the other day of the RSS that you can't trample on people's rights in the name of cow protection. Well, why is it that the police across the board behaves in such an insensitive manner, and I would say in a manner that treats the victim of a crime as somebody who's breaking the law,
That's right. In fact, an interview with one of the people in the Nagpur police, they said that as of now we haven't filed any charges against the victims. But once the results come back,
it's astonishing that you have somebody who's been beaten up, and it's not the first time this has happened.
Absolutely.
The police know that across the country there have been these incidents. It's been it's part of a pattern that is serious enough to have woken the Prime Minister from his slumber of 3 years, and he's made a statement on this. So why the Maharashtra police doesn't get with the program and says that, okay, it's our duty to implement the law, and it's silly, this whole thing of equipping. I would say the logic of equipping Maharashtra police people with mobile meat detection units instead of telling them to just enforce the law. Tells you something about the warped priorities of the Maharashtra government, and I dare say BJP state governments across the country. That even now, when all is said and done, when the national outrage and public outrage is so manifest that it has forced even the Prime Minister to break his silence, there is no evidence that this party and its state governments wants to change the way they act. They still want to treat the crimes related to the cow as somehow much more important than crimes related to human beings. And I think unless that changes in some way, we are going to continue to see violations of the rule of law in this country.
On that slightly worrying note, I think we can move on to our third news for the day, which is slightly more, well, I wouldn't say light-hearted, though that's how it started out. Just a quick summary for those who might not be aware of what happened. So the comedy group AIB, there's a picture that's been doing the rounds on the internet of someone who looks a lot like the Prime Minister but isn't the Prime Minister. So what they did is they took that image and an image that is actually of the Prime Minister, and on the one that is of Modi, they put a filter, one of those Snapchat dog filters where he's wearing fake ears. And they put those together and tweeted it just as a meme, something about travel life. And for a lot of people from the BJP and their supporters, they thought this was hurting national sentiments or disrespecting the PM, and so after much backlash, the AIB deleted the tweet. Now, after they deleted the tweet, the Congress got upset, saying, this is against freedom of expression, and why are you going down to them? And this is not any way to, if you're doing comedy, do it properly. Why are you scared? And at which point, AIB hit back at the Congress, saying it's not like when you were in power, you didn't try to muffle people's voices. So this kind of imploded out of something that was basically just a silly image. But
what it reinforces, Jahnavi, is something that Amartya Sen said in an interview to the Telegraph today, in the context of a documentary featuring him being censored, and he's not allowed to say the word cow in Gujarat, right? And he said this confirms my belief that we are now run by an authoritarian sort of government. And he chose his words carefully, and I think that this is all evidence, these are all hallmarks of growing authoritarianism. The excessive oversensitivity of the censor board, the utter humorlessness of BJP leaders and apparatchiks who cannot tolerate memes that people laugh about all the time. And you just have to go back to the annals of, just look at the newspapers of the last 70 years to see the kind of cartoons, Lakshman's cartoons, or Ajaji in Lucknow for the Pioneer, or Shankar Weekly's cartoons of Nehru, of Rajgopalachari, of all the stalwarts of the day. They were pretty vicious cartoons, and they were funny. And people laughed. People, even if you were the butt of a joke, you laughed. And around the world, politicians, you are in the public domain. People will laugh at you. So cartooning, memes are the cartoons of today, right? And just like the internet and just like social media has turned every citizen into a journalist, as it were, a citizen journalist, and her view can be expressed and circulated. The tools of Instagram or Snapchat, etc., make everybody a virtual artist, and live with it, right? So I don't know why the BJP should get so excessively sensitive. I think AIB should not have pulled it down. Obviously, the Congress is right to point out that the AIB should not have done that, just as the AIB is right to tell the Congress, who are you? But I think we need to be very clear that at any moment in time, it's the government of the day that whose conduct, or it's the ruling party of the day, whose conduct and whose lack of humor and lack of willingness to tolerate criticism or sarcasm, that should be the greatest cause of worry. So I think at the end of the day, the fact that freedom of expression online is still,
blurry.
It's blurry in this country. We've seen Section 66A of the IT Act being read down by the Supreme Court, but police, forces around the country regularly book people under 153A or other sections of the IPC for online comments that would not, wouldn't worry anybody if they appeared in a paper or were said on TV. So there's something about the online space that makes authority nervous and forces them to completely lose it. And I think the lesson in today's sort of, this controversy won't last more than 24 hours, but each one of these controversies is a reminder of the huge battle we have in this country in defending the freedom of expression. And we may not agree with something somebody says, we may find an image distasteful, but does that mean you proscribe it? Does it mean you bully people, get them to take it down? I noticed some people are comparing this to, that was a completely unwarranted comparison people made with Rajnath Singh's tweet against, what was it? Shuchi Kalra, the Make My Trip journalist. But what she essentially attacked Kashmiris as a whole and said that they should be culled. Right?
And his response wasn't abusive or anything. It was his point of view, and he put it across quite politely.
And for the Home Minister to respond to somebody on Twitter to say that, look, all Kashmiris aren't terrorists, I think it's a crying shame that in a country like India, a home minister should feel obliged to remind people about this. That's a sad commentary on how sick at one level public discourse has become in this country. But for people to fault Rajnath and then somehow equate his answer to her, which is upholding the Indian constitutional values and ethos, with attempts to shut down or muzzle public opinion, I think is completely unwarranted.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that's all we have for today. Join us again tomorrow for The Wire Explains. We look forward to seeing you.
Thank you.